Good? Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. I'm used to doing these in the morning, I guess. Thanks for coming. There's no one, usually we have people strolling in. Oh, here comes food. So please, once it's out, feel free to just get up and go get food while I'm talking. So sorry it's a little bit late, but I'll be answering your questions. You should still be able to hear my answers while you're getting food. So right now they're putting it all up. So I see some familiar faces and then a bunch of new faces, which is great. As you know, I may talk a little bit at the beginning about some stuff. I don't have a lot to talk about, prepared or anything. Usually I just answer questions. So briefly, I guess I'll just start with, some of the good stuff we have going on here in Orland and things that are like, for example, next week. So Veterans Day, we're opening the new Veterans Center. So they're going into a new building. And as someone who's a member of both of the organizations, the VFW and the Legion that use it, also Veterans Voices uses it, the meeting space is much bigger. They've actually got a full kitchen instead of just a refrigerator plugged in somewhere. There's a deck. So the Legion does picnics at a place in Homer Glen. I think they can actually do picnics there now because it's sitting right at the Humphrey Woods. So it'll be good. The other building it's frankly past its useful life. It needed about 600 grand of repairs. So we decided this building's available. Let's move them into this building. So we've kind of redone the inside, added some storage for them. So all in all, that is. So I encourage you to come out to our Veterans Day event, which is here, and then we will go from there over to the new Veterans building, and then we'll dedicate the new Veterans building, and you can take a tour of that as well. So we have that. The police training facility is under construction. The walls are up, so they're going to be ready for doing the interior work. So hopefully that's going to open in the spring. It might be closer to summer, but sometime in that April-May timeframe, I think it's going to be fully used. Right now, we don't have a firing range. The firing range we had was shooting into a hill next to Public Works. It was really not safe. I guess we got away with it when we were smaller and when there wasn't Stan's, Miller's, and now Seasons 52 over there. That needed to get done. So it's a training facility. Also, our EOC, our Emergency Operating Center, which we currently have, was built in like 1984 or 85. So we're going to just locate that with it. So now all the radios, everything, in the event that we have to go to that, we can use it. But it's going to double it'll have the EOC, but it'll also double as a training room. So we'll use it as a training room most of the time. We really don't. The only time we used the EOC at all was during COVID. But if there's a tornado or something like that, or if we lose power, there is some advantages to having that. So that's going to be next year. Dugan Park is also in the budget for next year. Dugan Park, I was trying to see it, but basically Dugan Park has 10 pickleball courts. It'll be lit. Tennis courts, the parking lots. This is where the old library was, and the cultural center. The parking lots will stay the same. The field will stay the same. They're going to add a sledding hill and a park there. So that's going in next year. We've moved it up a year because we received a grant of 600 grand from a Illinois agency. So if we receive that money, we're going to move that forward to make sure the project gets done. So that's next year as well. Schuessler Park was done this year. How many of you have seen it? Been there? Been by there? So Schuessler Park is amazing. I hear it from residents there all the time that kids are actually using the park now, and they've not used it their entire time living there. So there's also next year in the budget is phase 2. Phase 2 is this playground area here. So always was planned to be a second phase to the project because we couldn't do it all at one time, and that's going in next year. So it's an all-inclusive playground, so that includes all abilities. It's got the kind of the rubber matting and that kind of stuff, so that it's for all abilities there. So that'll go in. This that you see here, this is the new Heroes Park going in in the downtown triangle, and that project was approved a couple of weeks ago, and they should be breaking ground next year, actually putting moving dirt next year, and starting, I think they're going to have some announcements here shortly, but that should happen. We actually have to move utilities out at that site because when they did the triangle, they ran utilities and water and sewer right through the middle of lots, which makes no sense. There's a lot of things over there that didn't make sense. Unfortunately, you know, it's going to cost us a few $1 million to move all that stuff that wasn't done right the first time. It's been a kind of a sucking chest wound, if you will, for 20 years for those of you who've lived here. So, but we're trying to move past that, and we have a good, I think, a good project for that going forward. So those are kind of the things we have going on, and then I'm sure there's going to be questions. Obviously, we have an election in April, and the campaign stuff has been going on for 6 months, and it's going to continue. So I'm sure there's plenty of questions of stuff that's out there. So with that, I'll open it up.
One thing I've heard about Cheesewood Park is that kids are riding electric bikes on the field while the kids are trying to play soccer.
So kids are they've heard that kids are riding electric bikes on the field while kids are trying to play soccer. They're not riding their bikes there when kids are trying to play soccer. That's not the problem. The problem is they are going there at times and putting their electric scooters and their electric bikes. We have to keep it handicap accessible, so there's nothing we can do to lock it up to stop that. We do have extra patrols over there. We have cameras over there. At the end of the day, it's parents parenting their kids. We have been told by the manufacturer that won't damage the turf. I'd be more concerned if it was a motorcycle or something like that, or a dirt bike. But we're aware of it. We have cameras. We've been patrolling it. And as I tell people all the time, coming to me 3 days later and yelling at me about it doesn't help, because I don't have a time machine. I can't go back. I can't go catch the people that are doing it. But if you call our police, we will have someone over there, and we will, and if we'll ticket them. I mean, that's what we'll do, and we'll bring them in. Parents will have to bring them into the court, and, if they're doing that, because it's very clear that that's not supposed to happen. But it's not happening when the teams are out there and where people are playing and all that. That's not happening. So, but so unfortunately, kids will be kids, and there's more signage than you can shake a stick at. So, yeah. So it's very clear. The signage is very clear, yeah. So on the positive side, there's kids there all the time playing, which is kind of the idea of having a park, and it didn't used to happen. So.
Yeah, hi, Mayor. Is there any update on the sidewalk on 167th Street between Wolf Hook Road and LaGrange?
The sidewalk, you're talking about the bike path that's going?
Yeah,
there?
bike path, right.
Yeah, that's a project in coordination with Cook County. I don't know the exact details, but the project's in motion, but I don't know the exact details behind it. So I don't know exactly when it's supposed to be done. We have so many projects going on. But yes, that project is still is still happening. So.
Hi. The land south of 159th between 94th Avenue and 95th Avenue, it's the old Kentucky Fried Chicken and a BP gas station, and the couple blocks south of that. That's all swampland. I know you voted for it. It was going to be residential and commercial, but then it was voted down. And now it's going to sit there for the next 20 years. Why was it voted down?
Well, I didn't vote it down. So you have to talk to those that voted on it to ask them why it was voted down. This is we have a board for a reason, and the board members voted it down 4-3. So there would have been commercial along LaGrange. There's commercial along 159th, and that whole area. You're right, it's swampland. Personally, and all the board members know this, my position on it is it's probably the best project we'll ever see in that area. I know some board members, none of us want to see apartments, but in this case, no one's ever building single-family homes back where that swamp is. No one's ever building townhomes back where that swamp is. It's actually a place where it kind of makes sense. It's over by Walmart, it's over by Orland Hills. It's not really a single-family area, so it's a place where it actually makes sense. I think some of the concerns were a lack of commitment. They're concerned about a lack of commitment from the developer to build the commercial, and that they would build apartments and leave the commercial. So we put a bunch of things in place. That wasn't enough for some of the board members. So You know, we'll see if they resubmit.
But that wasn't going to involve any taxpayer money. That
No.
was strictly on the building.
Yeah, all of it's, yeah, there was no taxpayer money involved with that project whatsoever. So, you know, I mean, the board, that's what the board decided, but, you know, I had a different position, but that's okay. I mean, that's why we have a board. So, I mean, I'm sure you've heard that all the board members vote with me unilaterally all the time, and I control them. Well, I think that's pretty good evidence not on that particular project, so.
This is just coming off of not this comment, the previous comment. 82nd Avenue, south of 143rd. 82nd Avenue is a Cook County road, but there was study and discussion about improvement of the bike path and a sidewalk coming down that way.
Yep.
Is that project still alive?
That project's funded and moving forward, and we have money for it, so that's in the budget and just in process. They have to engineer it and all that. And some of that road is Cook County, some of that road is Orland. It's kind of a mess as far as jurisdictions go there. But yeah, there will be a bike path that connects to our bike path system there. So, yeah. So, and we know that there's some people that were upset by it, but I think most of the residents are happy because it's going to be a much safer transit down there. If you know. And eventually, at some point, we'll be able to get across from where Silver Lakes is as well, you know, because that is not ours either. And so it's hopefully at some point that will connect across too, but there's no project for that in the works. Got two back here.
When's Peaks Market opening?
Let's see. Wait. September 2022. Oh, no, wait. January 2023. I've heard different things from them constantly. The deal was, well, a lot of it was supply chain issues with their building stuff, and then basically their cabinetry, the stuff that, you know, the freezer containers, all that stuff were on back order. Apparently that's all in track. They had said they wanted to be open before Thanksgiving. Or they were going to open after the new year. I think their goal is still to open before the end of the year, but I just don't know. I don't know, but it's going to be soon because it's basically ready except for the shelving and the like. And then here's the thing. You think about how much stuff is in a grocery store. They have to stock that stuff in like 3 days to open up your store. The whole store, not just rotating stock out. Everything goes in. So, so there's some, you know, so they have challenges associated with that. But you know, they are planning on opening. They are going to open. You know, I'm sure it's going to be in the winter at some point. That much I'm fairly certain of. They have said before the end of the year is what the last I've heard.
We heard through the grapevine. It's hard for them to get enough help.
Well, it's hard for everyone to get enough help, but yeah.
So I'm one of the few houses behind Veterans Park that had 2 years of utter dirt and construction. And right now that the project is almost complete, there's no path anymore from one neighborhood into the park, and people literally are walking along my fence line. So I don't know, is there a plan for
So everything's going to be restored. So what you're talking about is the water main project, and here I am with a phone on. And of all people, a trustee calling me right when I'm speaking. But hold on a second while I turn off the volume on this. So the question is about Veterans Park, which is over, give me the exact address. I know approximately where it's at, but roughly. Yeah, so off of Wheeler, and we have a regional water project that many of you have heard me speak about a lot. This project was in the works for probably a decade before I even became mayor because it required all of the towns to get onto that. So I'm going to give you a longer answer to this question. So had to get everyone on board. When I arrived, that project was actually one of my first things that I did was we halted the project, the mayors, because the costs were running out of control and the engineer wasn't doing their job. So the mayors hired another engineer and overrode Oak Lawn to supervise what was going on, which even though the costs are still very, very high, it brought the cost down almost immediately, $40 or $50 million. But what this project does is, if you were to build a water system right now, you'd build it on a loop. Okay, you'd build the pipes on a loop. So if you have a cut in the loop, you could pump the water the other direction to get people water, okay? Well, when they did this many years ago, before any of us were born, they ran a system from Oak Lawn out to New Lenox, is how far, you know, basically how far it's been extended. But it's a straight line, it's not a loop. So if you get a cut, water stops flowing. There's no more water. So it runs under the Cal Sag. And they've had some major line breakages. It takes about a day to fix, and we've got enough storage water for that. If it broke under the Cal Sag, we could literally be without water for 4 or 5 days. And you know, people would die. I mean, that's just it. So it's a big deal to get this redundant system. So what this does is builds a second water system that runs, a second line that runs out to New Lenox. So now if one goes down, they can still pump with the other. So part of that is it runs east of your area, and that's what they're doing right now, which is over like east of Catalina and down that area, and it runs across Orland Park to get out, okay? So they're doing that. But there's another piece to that. The fact that they have a second line to pump water is great. We need a second line to get it in to Orland Park, because otherwise we don't have redundancy. If we pump it into the same line, we run the same risk. So there's a second line, a second redundant line called Spur 2, which we've been putting in the last 2 years. That's the construction that you're talking about. And so that runs from that line, roughly around where Harlem is, to behind Liberty School, which is where our main pump station is. And currently, anyone who lives over there sees that main pump station. We basically, as part of this, we're also taking down there's 2 halves to the system. We're taking down one half, redoing that half, and doing all the long-term maintenance that needs to be done on it, connecting that new line. When that's all done, then we're going to do the other side. So all that's getting done. So that is all there now and connected. So now it's the restoration. So all the park will be restored to what it is. Obviously, the timing, it's not going to be able to be restored with asphalt plants shutting down, all that kind of stuff. So the plan is so next year, all that stuff should get restored. Wheeler, some of Wheeler has been repaved, some of it hasn't, just because of other work that's going on. But Wheeler was on the plans for Orland Park to resurface like 5 years ago, to fully resurface. And we knew this project was coming, so we're not going to spend money on redoing Wheeler and then have to redo it again. So we put just a 1-inch overlay to buy us enough time, which was way cheaper than filling the potholes. We did that, and so we're redoing Wheeler. So Wheeler's getting redone as part of this, so that will be finished next year. All the park area will be restored next year. All that stuff is going to be restored back to what it was. That's part of the contract. It's just they're wrapping up still all the connections and all that, and I imagine they're still phasing out of there for the spur that's coming through. And the reason for that is if they're already staging there, you don't want them to stage in a new place and tear that up too. Well, unfortunately, and I mean, I think most of us, I certainly do. I mean, I live in a subdivision that's newer, and I still have had construction going on in ours as well from stuff. I mean, that's where the water system sits. So and unfortunately, a project of that magnitude, it's not a month to get it done. And you know, the other option is to not have water, and I don't think that's a good option. So it's just. I mean, it's unfortunate. We do the best we can, but at the end of the day, it's got to go through there because that's where it goes. And it goes down because you're near the high tension wires. It goes down the high tension wires, which imagine if we didn't have high tension wires. It'd be going through your backyards, and we'd be disturbing your backyards. I mean, so they're routing it in a way that it does the least disturbance as possible to everyone's properties. And you know, unfortunately, it takes time. I mean, this project has been going on since 2017. It came from Oak Lawn. It just happens to be in Orland Park right now. It's still going to go to New Lenox. So it's not done, but our portion will be done.
What's the status of Silver Lake? I know it gets discussed that it's near, they want to sell it or it's going to stay.
As far as I know, Silver Lakes is off the market, and they're running it as Silver Lakes. I mean, is it for sale again? No. Okay, I've got it. So Silver Lakes is no longer on the market to what, basically what I know. So.
In Riviera, to your point, that's that for a while.
Riviera was purchased, and they're obviously leasing out the restaurant, they're leasing out the banquet space, they can't find anyone to lease out the healthcare facility, which is not a surprise to me. It's a mess, it's an eyesore, we know it. We've been dealing with the owners for a long time. I mean, so it's up for sale. I mean, that's all I know. Now everybody's eating, so nobody has questions.
First of all, good afternoon. I'm proud to say my son plays varsity football at Sandburg, so go Sandburg.
Did they win last night?
No, unfortunately not. But last Friday, the Friday previous, which I'm talking about the 25th of October,
Okay.
they had an away game, and my wife and I we got the call from him, so we're on our way to Sandburg to pick him up after an away game. And I was startled to see up in the sky, like hovering around about 143rd and Wolf, was 8 to 10 drones. Now, this struck me as nefarious activity, and my question is, would the village utilize drones, and would they utilize 8 to 10 drones?
So we have drones, but we wouldn't have 8 to 10 drones. If you see something like that.
I did call it in, I did call it in.
So we'll investigate it. I don't know what transpired of it. It obviously wasn't something major from our police perspective anyways, whatever it was. But
just, wondered if there was any knowledge.
Yeah, we have drones, but we're not running 8 drones out at one time.
Yeah, not at 10:30 at night especially.
No.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or did everybody just come for the food?
Lot where the old car dealer used to be, is there gonna be, I heard Pete owns that. Is there anything done with that?
Yeah, you mean the old Terry's Lincoln Mercury site? Yes. Pete's Fresh Market owns it. Pete's Fresh Market had a project to go put the Pete's Fresh Market there years ago. They also own the art van where it's going now, and I had to go there and get yelled at for 10 or 15 minutes about how Orland Park treated them like it wasn't me. Because they had a deal to get it done. They were told they needed more parking, so they bought the lot next to it. And then when they came back in to submit, by the time they came back in to submit, my predecessor had cut a deal with Mariano's, given them incentives, and put a grocery store right in across the street. And so Pete's was, obviously, because we weren't giving them anything, was very, very upset. And they actually said at that time that they would never do anything in Orland Park again. So after Art Van went out, I knew they owned that. We reached out to them and kind of have mended that relationship. So they own that. They own the old PD's 2 site, and they own Andrew Corporation, or they're partners in Andrew Corporation as well. So, and they're very high in investing in Orland.
When will 131st and Southwest Highway be finished?
131st and Southwest Highway. Well, it's a state project, so I don't know. It was supposed to be done this year. Supposed to be. I believe, from what I see, I'm not sure where they're at with it. And it's a bigger project than just Orland Park. It goes further to the north, to the northeast. So that project's I would think worst case it's going to be next year, but I believe our section's supposed to be done this year. And I know it's somewhat passable, but I was by it today, and 135th is still not done. So given that it's November 2nd, I'm guessing it's going to be next year before it's finished. But that fixes the flooding. The flooding issues we had there, we had those 2 big May rainstorms and had even more flooding than we normally had over there. And we actually, myself, and then I got a bunch of other neighboring mayors to come, and we had IDOT in, and it was like 25 elected officials, and we pounded on IDOT. And IDOT said, well, the reason it's happening is because the forest preserves are not, they won't reduce the capacity, or they won't reduce the levels in McGinnis Slough, and so that it's overflowing onto the road. Well, I said, that doesn't make sense to me, because they would, I don't know why they wouldn't want to reduce it for the spring capacity. So I contacted my contacts at the Forest District, go, that's not true, IDOT hasn't let us. So we pounded on IDOT and we got them to allow them to release the water. So they started releasing water like in September, October, and drawing this. You think about how big McGinnis Slough is, you take that water down a foot or two, that's a lot of storage in the spring when the rains come. And so once we did that, we also identified there were 2 culverts that were blocked. Our engineering team came up with a fix to that, which IDOT's maintenance team put in, and ever since they did that, the road has stopped flooding. So at least, and then this project was supposed to be done in 2022, and it's finally getting done. So that's where we're at. But if it doesn't flood anymore, and it's going to be a much needed improvement.
What is Peace planning on doing with the Terry's lot, the PD2, and the Andrew Corporation property? Well,
so that's up to them. They have submitted some ideas, and so commercial project on 159th and LaGrange, combination commercial and residential at 143rd John Humphrey, and then all residential at Andrew Corporation, which is the highest best use for that property, but then requires a lot of cleanup because obviously you had a manufacturing facility there. So,
Mr. Mayor, thank you for the lunch.
You're welcome.
Number 2, we've been in Orland Park for 20 years, and one of the things that really attracted us to the area was a tax rebate program. Now, I know building parks and doing the improvements that we need to do costs a lot of money. Did anyone on the board, or did this ever come up, where a rebate program would go to seniors that are on fixed incomes?
Okay, so first off, the tax rebate program. So I'm going to take you to the tax rebate program, and then I'll answer the senior question. So seniors already get an exemption an additional exemption on their property tax. What that means is everyone else that's not a senior pays higher taxes to cover that. That's what that means. So you're already getting that. So you know that already exists. We also offer senior discounts at almost every event that we have. I got to go to finance here. So I guess the question on the rebate program, the question that I have for the audience is, how many of you would go to the ATM and borrow money on your credit card to pay your bills? Anybody here? Bad idea, right? Okay. So property tax rebate. A property tax rebate means that if you actually have the money to give a property tax rebate, it means that you over-levied your property tax. Well, why wouldn't you just levy less property tax rather than giving everyone a check? I'll tell you why. Does anybody remember when the check showed up?
Before election.
2 weeks before election. So this is an old ploy that's been used for a long time to buy your vote. Now these slides, this shows you. In red, in blue is the rebate every year. In red is the money the village borrowed that year to cover their bills. You'll notice every year but one, I believe, maybe two, we borrowed all that money in red to pay you a rebate. It's a total of about $39 million that we gave in rebates that we borrowed, plus $18 million in interest. That's $57 million that we could have used to fix roads, fix parks, do whatever. So that's why we stopped the program.
I understand what you're saying, but all these other projects cost money. Where are we getting the money for those projects? Are they paid for 100%?
Well, so we're using, so through the capital program, we're paying them through a combination of debt, because like your house, you do a major project like this water main project that's $200 or $300 million. The towns don't have the money to pay. I mean, it's a long-term project, so you pay for it over 20 years. That's how you get that done. So we're doing it through a mixture of that. Also fixing our finances has allowed us to do a lot of that stuff. That's how we have that. That's what we have that whole capital program. So I can walk through this entire finance piece from the last state of the village. So when I arrived, this was that graph you see on the left is what I got for the projections for our reserves. So we have operating reserves. We try to keep them at 20%. okay? Our operating reserves, based on how we were operating the village at that time, were projected last year to be minus 8%. We were going to burn through all of our reserves and basically be short money, okay? The changes we made through 2019 to 2022, that's what we actually did is over on the right. So you can see we had all of those, the reserves got up to 59.6%, 48%. We actually used that money to help pay projects, okay? Our debt, and actually that 2023 number is wrong. It's actually lower than that. So our debt when I arrived was $110 million. It's 90 now, okay? And we've done all these projects. Now, your property tax bill, you can see the village is the fourth one from the left. All those other places, that's how much more they levy. So back 25 years ago, Orland Park was 4.8% of the property tax bill. By the time I got on the board, it was 6.82. So we've gotten it down to, actually this year it's down to 5.8%. That number's even lower. So we're basically trying to get our property taxes down. So here's the challenges we faced. Aside from the fact that that property tax rebate, which, I mean, you got a $150 check, okay? I don't think it was making or breaking anyone in town, that $150 check, especially when you're borrowing for it. So you basically took $57 million out of our coffers to do that. The sad part is they were doing it to buy votes, it's obvious, but they never had challengers, so they didn't even need to do it. But they were just throwing that money away. So you take that $57 million, LGDF, complicated, but bottom line is state income tax, the state has historically, back to when it was instituted in the late 60s, shared 10% with the municipalities. In 2011, they cut that to help shore up their finances. It was supposed to be temporary. When Bruce Rauner took office, they started to restore it to a higher level. Then when Pritzker took office, they whacked it back down again. So this is the money that we've been shorted from that 10%. So we get about 6% now sharing, a little over. It's up to 6. Last year they increased it from 6.3 to 6.4. Thank you very much. So that money you see there on the left bar, that totals $50 million that we didn't get from the state. So take that 50 plus the 50 on the property tax, you're over 100, right? ARPA, that's the COVID money. Orland Park got screwed out of that as well, but that I won't go into all that. So here's some. So we inherited a lot of issues. So Orland Health and Fitness, everybody remember that trade-off? Now I can argue, we have spent $13 million as of last year in repairs to that because Payless stopped investing in it because they were going to close it. So there's a lot of repairs, 13 million bucks. I can argue either side of the issue. I can argue we shouldn't take it on. We didn't need another health and fitness. I can also argue, well, it's an indoor pool. It'd be a good amenity for the community, okay? What I can't argue is they had no idea it was going to cost us $13 million. I can argue that $13 million is worth it. I can argue that it's not worth it. But what I can't argue is that you should have known. You should have actually done some due diligence to understand what you were going to spend. And they didn't. And so we inherited that. Tinley Creek is got a project that should have been done in 2014. The project was going to be fully funded by MWRD. Now the project, because it's a water erosion, there's been more erosion, the project has doubled the cost. MWRD is not offering any more money. So now we're on the hook for paying that. That's another $4 million. Triangle losses on here says 31. We just got our latest audit, and we told them in this audit, I said, the Triangle project is done. I mean, we've shrunk the TIF and all that. I want to know everywhere where that money was at. Every other fund that paid for it, because they didn't pay for it all out of the Triangle. They paid for it from other funds too. So we're going to write off $47 million. So we lost $47 million in the Triangle. LaGrange Road. I'm fully on board with having expanded LaGrange Road like we did. It's made it so much better. I'm on board with beautifying the center and the median. But we spent $18 million on landscaping. That's a little bit excessive. I'm in a landscaping business. I'm thinking for a third of that, you could have still got really nice landscaping, right? But we spent $18 million on it, okay? So those are some of the things that we spent. So if you take these funding shortfalls, The capital program that we had, that you're talking about, all these projects, we had $100 million of unfunded capital over 5 years that we had to figure out ways to pay for. So new revenue sources, things like that, okay? If you take the projected shortfalls, you're basically, what, 70 million of that gap. If you throw in the decisions we made, the property tax rebates, the interest, the triangle, we have way more money than we could have paid for all of this, right? So that's why these decisions are really important. And these are all the capital projects we have going on. The issue with the capital projects is, and I'll just move forward. Oh, here's something else that's important. But the issue with capital projects is that basically we were underinvesting in roads, underinvesting in parks. If we don't take our buildings, if we don't take care of all of that, it gets worse and it gets more expensive. As you know with your house, if you've got a problem with your house and you wait, it gets more expensive. It's the same thing. And because of the triangle, we were spending all that money on the triangle. We've lost 47 million. We're diverting all of our money to that, which you can see how what that's resulted in, instead of fixing our roads, fixing our parks, and doing all this stuff. So I feel it's real important as a board to make sure that our infrastructure is good and that we have a steady plan to maintain it. And we had to catch up, basically. And so that's what we've done. But one of the important things we've done, too, is before I got here, over the previous 12 or 11 years, we had gotten about $3.1 million of grant money from other entities. So that's federal, state, etc. Since I've gotten here, it's been 41.6 million. But you can see in 2020 how that's ramped up. And we've got more projected for the future than even is shown on that. But that's money that's actually been awarded to us. There's about $250 million worth of applications. So we're finding money. Remember I said that this park is getting done next year, a year earlier? Because we got $600,000 towards that cost. And I'm like, if we get outside money, we got to use it, and we got to move this stuff forward to get it done. Because it makes sense for us. Yeah, it's all taxpayer money, but if it's coming from the federal bucket or the state bucket, we want to use that and not have to use direct Orland Park money. So that was a long answer to your question, but hopefully that was helpful.
Just one short question. Where do you see our future going in Orland Park? Are we going to be sound in the future, the next 20 years?
So the question was, are we going to be sound in the next 20 years? We're doing this precisely so we will be sound. So the idea behind making sure all these investments were made, and now I'm going to go back to some of the big stuff that we've done with infrastructure. So I'll show you these slides as well. But the reason we did a 5-year capital plan was to, what are all our capital needs? And we had some really big discussions about, do we need this? And there's some things in there that, as we're looking at this, it's like our public works facility, okay? You could continue to let it crumble, but it's like, at some point, we're going to have to invest in this. We're bigger. It was built in 1990. We need to add to it. We need to do some things, and then we can get more trucks inside, which makes the trucks last longer. But the things that when I arrived, we did a study on our trucks. The average age of our fleet was 14 years old. That includes the police cars that we don't keep nearly as long, right? So just ancient equipment, right? And the money, it just wasn't being repaired. It wasn't being invested in, and our goal with that plan is, what do we need to get back on track so that we can get back to a steady state? And yeah, we know that means that we're going to have some expenses. We might have to borrow. We have very low interest. We're very strong financially. But better to do that and then eventually be able to wind that down. Now, so we have the future boards to continue that process, which hopefully they will, but we're going to leave them in a good place. So the biggest things are probably the biggest things that you see. Roads and parks, okay? So on the left-hand side of this slide, that shows you, in 2018, there was an assessment. We assess all our roads. They laser test all of our roads throughout the whole village, okay? And we have like 250 different road areas. We average that out, and we rank them, and then we try to fix them based on that ranking. It doesn't always work exactly like that, because like Wheeler, for example, we knew it needed to be fixed, but we got a project coming along in 4 years, so we're going to wait, that kind of thing, because it's smarter to do that. So the money that we were spending in 2018 and had spent previously, so what you see in red and orange, that's the roads that were in poor and very poor condition, 40%. The projection was in 2023, we'd actually be a little bit worse. We'd have not as many in very poor, but overall poor and very poor would still be slightly higher. Okay, we were not investing enough. So what we did, and Trustee Katsinas is here, the first thing we did in 2019, first board meeting, is we doubled our spending that year on our roads, on our local roads. And we maintained that until this year. We maintained that. And that was $8 million a year we were spending. Okay, now we were accused of committing a crime for doing so. The then trustee Dodge went out there, wrote articles, and blasted us all. And by the way, I have all the emails of him supporting us doing it until the night of the vote. Okay? So, you see the right-hand side, that was our 2023 assessment. So that's last year's assessment of our roads. Based on the 8 million, and we didn't even do it every year. We just did it in 2019, 2020, 2021, and 22. So we look at where we are in 2023 compared to what was projected just to the side of it. We're down to under to 30% instead of over 40% poor and very poor. We assessed at that time that if after 23 we went down to 6 million a year, that we would be here where you see on the right. So at the end of 2027, we will have no roads in Orland Park that are in very poor condition, less than 20% in poor condition, but look at the number in blue. 65% will be considered very good. Our average rating will go from 48, which is fair, to 68, which is good. Okay, 70 is considered best in class. So that's because of the investment we made. But the goal is once we get these roads where they need to be, then you can actually trim off the 6 million, go back to 5 or 4. The problem is if you fall way behind because you kick the can down the road a few years, you can never catch up. So we're catching up, but we're catching up in a responsible way, right? Borrowing $30 million to fix all your roads at one time would have just left the future board with the problem of all the roads failing at the same time. So that's why we do that. So then that's roads. And you can see from the colors of the two surveys, 2018 and 2023 on the right, how much more is blue and how much less is red in that road. So, and then also parks. So here's another thing about parks. We have over 60 parks. We have, I think, 55 or 56 playgrounds. From when I arrived here, if you look at the plans, this is what we did in parks, renovated. So, you're looking at, on average, about 1 every 2 years of renovations. Obviously, if we have 60 parks, 120 years to get through your parks to renovate them is not, parks aren't going to last that long. So we had them rated in 2018, okay? The rating in 2018 was 2.82 for the average park. In 2023, 3.56, because again, we doubled the spending on them. The other thing we did is we looked at all of the ratings, anything that was poor, we focused on that. Instead of just saying one park, we're going to redo it all. Let's redo the stuff that needs to be redone, not just one park. So what we've been able to do, and this doesn't include this, actually this does include this year. So if you look at how many major park renovations we've done, 16, 26, 32 major park renovations we've done. They did 6 in the previous 12 years. So we've done over 30. Pavilions, I think every pavilion has either been replaced or a new one. Basketball courts, we've resurfaced like 24 of them. Tennis courts, like 17 of them. So we did all this to get us back to where everything should be. And it's taken some time, but we're in a good place. And actually, parks, this year, I think, previous years, you can see what we're fixing. 7, 9, 5, 6, 5. Next year, I think we're fixing 3, then 3, then 2, then 2, because then we'll be on a good glide path to do 2 a year. So, and part of it was neglect. Part of it was the rapid growth we had, and all that stuff is happening at the same time. But then when you neglect it on top of it, you find yourself in a bad spot. So.
Question? Did he answer it? No, I didn't ask it.
Okay.
I don't know if you could answer if I didn't ask it.
I'll try. I'm sorry for those long-winded answers, but I thought it was important for you guys to see that.
I just wanted to, sort of a little bit of a change of topic. But first of all, I just wanted to express appreciation for the moratorium. And I noticed that there's a Board of Trustees meeting coming up the 16th of December, and I think the 2nd or 9th. Will it be decided then whether they're
It's going to be
extended?
decided Monday.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just give you a preview. So our staff, by the way, and the presentation they showed does not show all the work they did. And my staff will tell you, I'll tell them when they got to do things better and whatnot. It's the best work I've seen from our staff since I've been mayor. The Sangeeta who put this together did phenomenal work, researching this and everything else. So, and you're going to hear some of this if you listen to the board meeting Monday night, but I'll preview it. So the issues that we face is we've seen rentals. We were about 11% rentals 2017, 2018. Now we're like 14 to 15% rentals in town. Now part of that's because we added some apartments in the 2015 to 2018 timeframe, but part of it is more housing being rented. Okay, and one of the concerns is that investors are buying these houses sight unseen, and then and that's way more concerning than an individual buying a second house and renting it that lives here, because that asset's going to be important. If it's a big billion-dollar company, they don't really care about Orland Park, right? It's just so we're a little bit concerned about that. The facts are, you know, a lot of people don't want to buy, so we're cognizant of that. But also, I think it tends to be true that the properties that are rentals are not maintained as well as properties that, and so we know that. We know that that is true. And that's not always true, but it tends to be. So, like, how do we address this so we don't, because what has happened in some other communities is these investors have come in and bought swaths of the community, and all of a sudden it turns into a rental community, like that. And we don't want to see that. At the same time, people have property rights. We can't violate the Constitution. So so we said, okay, we're going to put a moratorium on giving any new licenses to rent while we investigate this, and we figure it out. So here's what we figured out. Is what we can do is we do have some ability to limit the number of rentals. We can't limit all rentals. There's certain things we can't limit rentals from, which makes sense. We can't tell members of the military they can't rent. There's a couple other classes of citizens you can't do that with. But we can, and it has held up in court, that we can hold it to a 10% rental for homes. So, so what we can do is break it into your census block, and your census block may very well be the block you live on, and that's it. They're pretty small, okay? And limit those to 10%. And so what we're going to, I think it's going to be unanimous, is we're basically going to approve a new additions to our ordinance that limits it to 10% in a census block. If the census block is currently over 10%, those houses would be grandfathered in until they sell. Okay? If you don't have 10%, first person to get to 10% wins. I mean, that's basically what it is. If somebody decides to rent and there's availability, then they can get a rental. If there's not, they won't be able to. That has held up in court. Other communities have done it. Other communities have done stuff that haven't held up. That has. So we're going to institute that. Now, that does not address condo buildings converting, which is something we're going to have staff look at more. And it doesn't, anything that's been approved as an apartment by our planning commission, by whatever, that does not count, right? So if it's a rental area that's been approved, like 9750, that's not going to count, right? Which makes sense. So it still gives the board a flexibility to say, hey, like that project at 94th and 159th, right? To say, hey, we think this is probably the best thing we're going to get here. We can approve apartments there, right? So the boards will still have that capability to do that. But just generally in our single-family home areas, it'll be limited to 10%. The other thing it limits is it limits investor ownership to 8 units. And I think there'll be a little bit of discussion about that because I'm not sure where the 8 came from. But basically, that means, you know, BlackRock can't come in here and buy more than 8 homes. So, so that's another, another thing that's important there. So basically, it was done to try and keep us an ownership-focused community, addressing something that really has been a phenomenon over the last 5 or 6 years. So did that answer your question? Okay. And there'll be more, and you'll hear the board members' comments on that Monday night.
Mayor, we've been here 30 plus years and appreciate your leadership and your rational decision making And we're happy residents of Orland Park, especially with what's going on with the police department and the recognition that they receive again and again. It's really impressive. So thank you. And there's a couple things. You know, one question, I have two questions. One would be, you know, what do you wish we had more of in the village to further make ground on those charts and things that we talked about? And then the other is, we live not too far from the mall, and over time we've seen the mall kind of degrade, mostly because, you know, people buy differently now than they did 30 years ago when we would mop the mall on Friday nights because, you know, we had little kids and it was a fun thing to do. So what do you have to say about the mall as well?
Okay, so so two questions there. What would I want to see more of, and what would I, and the mall. So, and yes, our police, and I'll start with, yes, our police department do a phenomenal job. So what would I want to see more of? I guess so first what I would say is, I think one of the reasons we got in trouble with the TIF is we had people here, well, the mayor and some of the trustees that were like, we have to have a walkable downtown, we have to do this. They're trying to make Orland Park something it just naturally doesn't have, right? We can't be something we're not. So rather than worry about what do we wish we had and be a walkable downtown, we ended up spending over $150 million, we're $50 million in the hole on that thing, right? Because we wished we had something. Instead, I kind of think about, let's focus on the stuff we have. You see all the work we're doing on our parks. At, you know, Schuschler Park, what we've done, you know, we've made that park, it was never used before. Now people are using it. Yeah, there's kids riding their bikes out, but they're over there with their bikes. I mean, they weren't there before, right? You've got Centennial Park West, which is phenomenal out there. It's beautiful. It's going to bring people from outside of Orland here to use our restaurants and those things. So I think we have to focus on making the bike paths that we have to connect to all of our native areas. We have 15,000 acres of forest preserve either inside or touching Orland Park. I think we've got to focus on the good stuff we have and making those things better. If there was one thing that I wish we had in Orland, a base of, that we just don't have a base of, and it's going to be challenging in the current environment to get, is the economic diversity of more office space. We have a lot of small offices. We have a couple out on the I-80 corridor, but letting Andrew Corporation go, which the previous administrator let them go. I mean, he basically said they don't generate sales tax, we'll miss them, but you know, it won't hurt us that much. It hurts us a lot. It's 950 jobs, right? It was a Fortune 1000 corporate headquarters, right? Those don't grow on trees. So I wish we had more of that. I don't think we're going to get that anytime soon because Illinois businesses aren't rushing to relocate to Illinois. And we would have to have that. So I just don't think that's something we're gonna have. So I think we need to focus on what we do have and focus on what we do bring. And one of the things we have is we have a population that's, you know, relatively affluent. We're the economic hub of the southwest suburbs. So what are we seeing? We're not seeing corporate offices, but we're seeing medical offices. We're seeing Silver Cross. I mean, Silver Cross, Northwestern, University of Chicago, and you know, to name a few. Dooley, worst name ever, but old DuPage. Right? They're here, right? So we have a lot here. So I kind of focus on that. Now, regarding the mall, so I was in the mall yesterday. There's only one store in the mall. Well, we have two anchors in the mall, one that's occupied, one that's not, that I have a concern with. One is JCPenney, and they're not investing in it. And believe me, we're on it, and the mall's on it. The mall's not happy either. And the mall, Simon Properties that owns the mall, they're investors in JCPenney. They kept them alive. But they kind of keep them separate, you know, different management teams, and they're pushing on them. So I want to see JCPenney's invest like Macy's has, like Von Maur obviously went in there. Our mall is a top 1% traffic mall in the entire country. In the entire country. It's top 10% in revenue per square foot. The Apple store, it's the best performing store they have outside of their downtown location in Chicagoland area. Okay. There's a lot of stores in there. It's their #1 store. Orland Square Mall is doing great. I was there yesterday. Sales are up. Sales are the best they've ever been. So the mall is doing extremely, extremely well. been a focus of mine. Again, I go back, it's a different mentality. Appreciate what you have, okay? My predecessor said he hates that the mall is the centerpiece of our town. He went to the Simon properties and he said he wanted them to tear it down and turn it into a town center with outdoor shopping. I don't want to compete against Oak Brook because we can't. I want to be, it's going to get cold. 40% of their sales, I asked Macy's, 40% of their sales, middle of November to the end of December, when it's cold. So being indoors is not a bad thing, okay? We can't compete. Oak Brook's a top 10 mall in the whole country. Quit trying to be something, again, don't try to be something you're not. Be what you are, and what we are is great. It's a great mall, it does great business, and it services everyone south of 88. I mean, they were telling me that people from Kankakee, people from Indiana, that's where we draw from. They said even people come from downtown. And I said, why do they come from downtown? They said, because we have parking, right? So appreciate what we have. The mall, and one of the first things I did was go to the mall and talk to the mall and reestablish that relationship, which was really important. That's how we got Von Mauer, to be honest. But one of the concerns people have, and this is why I brought this up, I always hear about safety at the mall. And I don't hear about that too much anymore because we've done such a good job. Previously, the mall was safe before I became mayor. Let me make this perfectly clear. It was safe before I became mayor. But nobody would stand up here and say that because they wanted it to go away, which I don't understand. It is, I mean, Cindy will tell you she's lectured some elected officials running for office that were saying that, you know, oh, the mall's horrible. It's like, you realize it pays for your schools that you're running for? I mean, it's 10% of our taxes directly, probably 40%, 50% indirectly, the mall. So it's huge. So what did we do? What was I able to get done because of the relationship? That youth supervision program that we put in. So on Fridays and Saturday nights, we have a youth supervision program. You have to be with an adult over 21 if you're under 18 in there. If not, you're not allowed in. Well, Fridays and Saturdays were the highest retail theft times, and it was mostly kids that were stealing. In the first 2 years we put this program in, on Fridays and Saturdays for 2 years, there were less than 5 thefts in the whole mall because we had that program put in place. Simon was very reluctant to put it in. I said, what do you got to lose? It's going to improve perception. Perception's your problem. It's not that it's not safe and desirable. It's just people perceive it not to be. How do you fix that? And so they did this. Now that they've implemented it now in other malls because it's worked so well. All of the people shopping there like it. All the people work there like it. The mall likes it. So it's been very beneficial. So we subscribe to a service that tracks crime around malls. It tracks it around 3 miles and 6 miles, and it compares it across the country. 100 is average. Anything less than 100 means you have less crime. So 76, you've got 24% less crime than the average mall, okay? So this is the 1 to 3 mile comparison and the 1 to 6 mile comparison of Orland Square, Oak Brook, and Woodfield versus the national average. So from 3 miles, we're like half of the national average. Lower than Oak Brook, lower than Woodfield. 6 miles, lower than Oak Brook, lower than Woodfield. The mall is extremely safe. High traffic. And yeah, people shop different. It's a little bit different. Maybe there's not as many people in there anymore, but there's still a lot of people buying at the mall. A lot of people. And like Cindy says, when she goes through, she always looks to see, are people walking around with bags in their hands, or are they just walking around? She goes, everyone has bags in their hands. So that's what we want. I want people to shop, not people to hang out, right? So the mall is doing fantastic. We would love to see Pennies Invest. We're working on that. I'm working on trying to get a meeting there. And we would love to see the people that bought the Sears sell to someone else. We do have someone that's interested in the property, but the people that bought the Sears don't seem to be very interested. They're billionaires. They don't really care. So we're doing what we can. But even in spite of that, the mall's doing great.
Was there any talk about an AMC theater in the mall?
So that was pre-COVID. There was an AMC theater, and the whole Sears was going to be AMC theater and some other stuff. COVID basically killed it. They had done the asbestos removal inside. They were getting ready to start. COVID happened. You know what happened to the theater industry, and then it went up for sale from them. This other group bought it. This other group wants to do things we would never let them do. So right now it's sitting. They are fixing some things in there, and they've, you know, seal coated the asphalt. They made some things look a little prettier, but at the end of the day, we're hopeful that they quite frankly, the people that we have that are interested in it would probably lease it from them as well. So I'm just hopeful that they start to work with us a little better, would be the hope. Well, okay, now you're talking about Cook County prosecutors. So retail theft is not, as you might imagine, is not something that's highly prosecuted. So what we do is we generally, unless they have a long criminal history, we generally issue them municipal tickets and have them come to court. Because here's what happens if we write that, if we charge them with something, and Cook County actually does, and charge them, which a lot of times they won't. We spend a lot of time trying to get the charges. Then when we get the charges, we get to court and they kick it out. We've now wasted an officer's full day and all that. By doing a municipal ticket, they come into the municipal court, they get a fine, and our officer's there for 15 minutes and back out on the street. Now, I've heard, just because this is what goes on, oh, those don't count as crimes and we're messing with our statistics. Not true. All of those things count as a crime too. Every ticket we write counts as a retail theft, just like a retail theft going to felony. It's still the same. It's a retail theft, so it still counts. But by doing that, it basically allowed us to bring the money in and allows us to save the time we would otherwise waste in court. Because to get a retail theft misdemeanor, they'll kick it every time. Felony, really hard to get unless there's other issues associated with it. Then sometimes we can get it, but. Any other questions?
Thank you. I was thinking Orland Park was somewhat remiss in submitting some kind of tax information to Illinois State authorities.
Yes.
Was that true?
Yeah. We have to submit audits to the state. Okay. And what happened to Orland was our 2021 audit was severely late. And for those of you who know how audit firms work, well, first off, the audit industry basically don't have enough accountants, and they can't get to all of these things. So this is a challenge throughout the industry. So we were in a position where it was late. The board was, when we were made aware that it was late, which we were notified they were having problems, probably later than we should have been. The problem you have is they're your auditor, right? And in order to get to borrow, to get debt, to do all kinds of different things, you need your audits complete. Well, so you only have so much leverage over an auditor once they're working on your audit, because they have to be, they're independent, because it's an important control for the board to have independent auditors looking at these things. It's something that we make sure there's no theft, there's no this, there's no that, right? So the auditor was late. We did everything we could to pound them to get it on time. They were very late. So we didn't get our 2021 audit, which technically is supposed to be done 6 months after the year closes, so June of 22. We didn't get it till December of 23. Now, right now, the auditor, the comptroller's office is issuing blanket extensions to everyone because no one's getting them. Very few people are getting them done on time. But literally the day that they submitted that audit to us, we ended their contract because they were supposed to do the 2022 audit. We said, absolutely not. But if we would have ended that before that time, then they would have not worked on our audit. It would have been even later. So we got the audit done. That was issued in December of 2023. Then we have to go find a new auditor. So we went out for an RFP for a new auditor. It takes 90 days to get a new auditor, to go through the RFP process. Plus, then you got to negotiate the contract. So we got them under contract in May. They started in June. Now, the board takes this really seriously because in that RFP, we said we want the 2022 audit done in 4 months, and we want the 2023 audit done by the end of the year because we want to be caught back up. So for those of you who know anything about an organization this size and audits, a first audit takes a lot longer because there's a lot of background work they have to do because they're not familiar with your organization. It did take them 5 months to get it done. We are going to be accepting it Monday night. So we have it. It's done. It's clean. There's nothing, it's what they call a clean audit. There's nothing in it that's that's bad, and it's done. So it took them 5 months to get that first one done. And then they'll do the 2023 audit after that. So those things will be filed. The interesting thing about this is that the state comptroller has decided to make a big publicity stunt out of all this. 2022 audits, I think there's 75 municipalities that are late. We're the only ones that they went out and did this with. I don't think putting they tried this with the Secretary of State 4 years ago, right before my last election. This is just, it's purely political. The IML, Illinois Municipal League, they sent letters to they sent a letter to the comptroller's office, basically demanding them to retract their actions, as did Sean Morrison, our Cook County Commissioner. So we're on it. And at the end of the day, our audit's done, the 2022 audit, and then the 2023 audit will be done. According to our auditor, he told the comptroller it'll be done not later than March. So we'll be just about back on time with it all. So it's something we take seriously, which is why we did what we did. And Cindy could tell you that the previous auditor, we asked for the working documents because they had done a lot of 2022 work already. We asked for their working documents. They refused unless we paid them more money. We told them we're not going to be extorted for more money. We will just redo them. So it took us a little longer, but we weren't going to give them any more money for being after they were so late the first time. So yeah. So believe me, it's been frustrating for all of us. And why haven't I responded or the board responded to all of the attacks, even the comptroller? Because our audit's not in our hands. And as long as it's not in our hands, who knows what they can do? Unfortunately, the state government has a lot of power over you and they've shown that they would wield it. So we just basically have kept our mouth shut and let our auditors. Plus, if we interfered with the auditors, it eliminates the independence. I want an independent audit, and that's what we have. So.
If you have a contract in order and they don't meet the dates, can't you sue them for not doing the job?
Well, sure, we could sue them, but you want to sue your auditor that gave you a clean audit, because they could give you a not clean audit if they so decide. I mean, they have a lot of power over you, right? You're kind of what's that? The numbers are the numbers. Are you familiar with audits? Are you familiar with accounting? Yeah. Well, so yeah, an auditor can they can do a lot of damage to your village with one statement in your audit. Right? So we have to be very careful. It's a tricky line you have to walk, but they did the work. We wouldn't win in court over suing over something like that. And the lawsuit to get back, I think our audit is, it's somewhere in the 60 to 70 grand a year is what it costs. Going to trial for 60 or 70 grand is going to cost you a lot more than 60 or 70 grand. So at the end of the day, it's get your audit, move on to a new firm that's better. Well, these are all great theoretical commentary, but it's just not the reality of how these contracts work. No auditor, I can tell you right now, no auditor will sign a contract where it says there's a penalty if they're late, because they also rely on the village giving information back and forth. So they'll say the village was responsible for that lateness. So it's great to say in theory we would do that, but if no audit firm would actually sign a contract and do your work, if you put that in there, then you can't put that in there, right? So this hasn't been a problem. In this particular case, that auditor was acquired by another firm, and they basically stopped doing work on our account. That's basically what happened. And we were frustrated by it, but I mean, you got to deal with what you're dealing with, and you got to address the issue, which we've done to the best that we could.
Knowing how long audits take, couldn't Orland Park have submitted things a little bit quicker to a new auditor? And moving forward, will we be doing that a little more quickly?
So could we have submitted things quickly? So I think what you're talking is, could we have done the RFP sooner? No, because to do the RFP tells the auditor that's working on your audit that you're firing them. So if you put the RFP out before you get the audit, they stop working on your audit's even later. You can't do the 2022 audit until the 2021 audit is done, right? These things have to happen in line. So no, we couldn't. We were talking about firing our auditor 6 months before we fired him. But unfortunately, you're there, you're waiting for them to get the audit done, and you can't make a public statement. There's a reason why they were fired and the RFP was put out the next, within days, because we were ready. Moving forward, well, we got a new audit firm. And so the new audit firm, if they do their job, I mean, there's nothing you can do once they're working on it. You can't make them get it done faster. A good auditing firm, you know, if they stay good, is going to do it on time because they want to keep your work. If they don't, they're not going to keep your work. In this particular case, they were acquired by someone else. Obviously, the account wasn't important to them, and they did what they did. So, but we took the only action we could do, which was wait till we got it, fire them, and get new ones. And the new ones are very highly regarded, and they've done. And you know, we said 4 months. It was 5. As a board, anyone who knows anything about first audits, 5 months is, for an organization like us, is pretty good. And secondly, we also went through a data conversion with an old ERP system and then a new ERP system. So the data doesn't always transfer right. So they have to track all that down too. So it's very, very complicated. So to get through that in 5 months, this auditor emphasized Orland Park. There's no doubt in my mind that this was a high priority for them. So what's frustrating for us is that we were communicating with the comptroller the entire time. They knew, and in fact, the day that she went out and attacked us publicly, that day we met with her office, and they accepted the fact that we would be approving it Monday and then uploading it after that. They said that compliance plan is fine. Then 6 hours later, they come out and attack us publicly. It doesn't make sense, especially when, like 2023 audits, I think there's over 400 organizations in Illinois that are late. But you know who also is late with their 2023 audit? The comptroller itself. And the comptroller's fiscal year ends 6 months earlier than ours. So they should get their own house in order before. It's important for the comptroller to make sure that all these units of government are on time and getting things done. A lot of communities don't have the wherewithal we have to get caught up like we are. They don't have that ability. And working in an adversarial way with people that are cooperating with you is not their role. Their role is to try and help people. And doing what they did to us, I can't imagine anyone wanting to talk to them or cooperating with them. In hindsight, we'd have been better off not saying anything to them. We're the one that identified these issues. So, but it is what it is. But the village is, you know, again, the audit's going to be done and approved or accepted Monday night. So. Any other questions? Nope, nobody?
Triangle, you talked about the park. Can you give us more updates on restaurants or other things that are going in there? How far along are we on those things? The triangle. The
triangle, I can't give you any updates on it. I mean, we just approved it a couple weeks ago. So once it's approved, I do know that they have some commitments, but they're still negotiating things. So that much I know. So, but hopefully there'll be news announced, you know, in the next month or so, I would hope. But.
Yes, the police department or any agency do a periodic review of traffic signage. Because I've run into cases of stop signs seem to be terribly pointless. Something basically doesn't know what shouldn't really be there.
So, so the question was, do we do a periodic review of traffic signage? We do. We don't do a review of the entire town's traffic signage. I think we take up those issues as they come. We have a traffic advisory board that basically has a process they go through. We get a lot of requests for stop signs. We get a lot of requests for traffic signals. Speed bumps, by the way, don't ever bother requesting a speed bump from us. We're not going to do it. Okay, plowing, fire, not going to happen. Okay, so. We look at different traffic control measures. We do all that kind of stuff. We study that. So that's for putting new ones in. If somebody sees one that they don't think should be there, you can certainly bring that to our attention, and we'll certainly review that as well. But we do have a group that regularly meets to review all of those requests.
What about like trash on the street? Like I know it's like in the ponds area or like off of the range, you know, stuff flows around and it sticks. Who's responsible?
So homeowners or property owners are generally responsible for their property. If it's village property, we're responsible. If it's state roads, state's responsible. So generally speaking, this time of year, you know, stuff is pretty clean. I mean, I was driving around, and I mean, our subdivisions are pretty clean most of the time. I'll start getting complaints in February and March because the landscaping crews aren't working in the winter, so they're not picking it up, and you know, stuff blows in over the winter. And then usually when they start working, that's when stuff gets cleaned up again. It's just kind of the way things go because, you know, unfortunately, I've had, my wife could tell you this, I just had surgery actually, and we were at a Dunkin' Donuts, and I watched somebody in the Dunkin' Donuts take a big gulp and just drop it out of their car while they're at the window. And I got out on my crutches and said, get out here and pick this up. And she thought I was nuts because she's like, you know, something's going to happen to you. I'm like, well, I'm not going to, I mean, and I basically, and it was a kid, it was like a 17 or 18-year-old kid. I said, there's a trash can right there. Pick it up and put it in there, right? So, yeah, believe me, that's one of my pet peeves. And it's not just us, it's all the mayors around here. It's a pet peeve for all of us. You know, it's people being negligent. But I think generally speaking, this time of year and through the year when we have landscaping crews and we're mowing, I drive around, things look pretty clean. You know, yeah, if we have 50-mile-an-hour winds or something on a trash day sometimes, but in the winter it will get a little bit bad because, you know, IDOT's not out mowing, no one's out there mowing and that kind of stuff. But if you see something particularly bad, if we see something bad on a business, you know, we can't be everywhere. If you see something, call it in. We'll go out and we'll have our, you know, we respond to that, we look at it, and we basically say, hey, clean this up. And if it's a recurring problem, we'll ticket them.
Getting back to the stop sign.
Any idea when Pete's Produce is having its
You were
grand
late.
opening? I didn't hear.
I said you were late. That was the first question I was asked.
Oh.
Pete's Fresh Market, I don't know. You know, they've been telling me, but I'm hopeful. The last I heard from them, it's before the end of the year. Yep. Well, the first time they told me it would be September of 2022. Yeah. So now we're here. So, but I think they're waiting on cabinetry. They were waiting on cabinetry and some other things. Now it's stocking and getting employees and all that other stuff. So, you know, I think based on their last commentary, it's going to be before the end of the year. That's what I heard. So, but I think worst case scenario, it's going to be sometime this winter.
Getting back to the stop signs, I go to work in the morning and I see people running stop signs all the time.
Yep. Yeah, people run stop signs. What can I tell you? People speed too. But you know, we have 22 square miles. We just can't be everywhere. And I can promise you, if our officer was sitting there, they wouldn't run the stop sign. I mean, you know, but we can't have, we just can't have an officer stationed at every stop sign. So I will also tell you that every time we've heard complaints about speeding in a neighborhood or stop signs or all that, and we go out there and do an extra patrol, we write tickets, and 98% of the tickets live in the neighborhood. So it's your neighbors. It's not people from out of your subdivision. So, you know, just people be more mindful of what you're doing.
Is it camera there? And,
yeah, we can do a portable camera. Do you do
cameras around?
Okay, so we could do a portable camera there, and we do portable cameras. But you really want our portable cameras focused on stop signs, or do you want portable cameras focused on theft and criminal property damage and things like that? Because there's only so many things that you can store in the cloud. There's only some things that you can look at. And oh, by the way, do you want our police to be? Do you want basically a speed camera at every stop sign intersection and writing tickets on that? Is that how you want to live? I don't want to live that way. You know, we have three cameras, 3 red light cameras. They're all at what were the highest crash intersections in the community. We do not write tickets for right on red unless there's a pedestrian or they go through it at 20 miles an hour and they don't stop at all, right? Rolling red, we don't do any of that like some towns do, right? Because we're not using it as a revenue generator. It really is to keep the crashes down, and it has been effective. But that's the only 3 places. But I don't want to live in a place that has that stuff everywhere.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks. Okay. So Trustee Katsina said I should share the Walgreens story. So we had, so the Walgreens over by Will Cook Road, we had someone come in there and start loading their cart with liquor. And the manager said, please stop. You could tell that they're not intending to pay for this. And he just kept doing it. And she said, I'm going to call the police. And he goes, honey, go ahead and call the police. And he keeps doing it. And she calls the police. Police are on the way. He walks out. He throws it into the back of his car, and he takes off. Our police get there, and the manager will not sign the complaint, which means when they won't sign the complaint, we can't go chase those people down. Now, we could have caught them. So, to be blunt, I was pissed. So was the chief. And I instructed the chief. I said, I'm the liquor commissioner. Go write them a ticket for conduct unbecoming a license holder. And I sent them, they came, and normally when that happens, like it's an underage thing that we do or something like that, their first violation is kind of a slap on the wrist kind of thing. They don't usually come in front of me until there's multiple violations in a year. So I don't get a whole lot of hearings. I said, this is not going to the municipal court, it's coming straight to me. So I fined them, I think $5,000 and took their liquor license for a week. And guess what? Now they write complaints. They sign complaints. Because it's in our code that liquor license holders must cooperate with police. If you're not going to cooperate with police, I'm going to fine you. Because I don't want you inviting criminals to our town, because once they know you're a soft target, they're going to keep coming. One of the things I learned from that's in our liquor code. It was not in our business license code. So the next meeting, we added that to our business license code. And we had a problem with a store at the mall that would not sign complaints. And they were having a retail theft problem. Well, so we ticketed them twice. Now, they're not my jurisdiction, so they do go, in fact, to our municipal court. They got fined $500 and $1,000 the first two times. Then they started calling and signing complaints. Guess what? People stopped stealing from their store. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's common sense, right? But so those are the kind of actions that we've taken.
My brother-in-law was a manager of Walgreens. And they had a zero tolerance policy all the time. His manager, if you got caught stealing a piece of gum,
yeah,
he had to go down to court and prosecute that person for stealing.
Von Mauer has a zero tolerance policy. They have less theft.
And that affected it because everybody knew at that time, you don't steal from Walgreens.
Right.
Because no matter what you stole, if you got caught, you were going to be prosecuted.
Right. So that's similar. I believe in that, and the board believes in that, and it shows in our numbers that retail theft is still the bulk of our crime, 90%. When you got 12 million square feet of retail, it's always been, and most of it's petty stuff, and most of it's and the majority of it's kids, right? So. But those are the kinds of things. This one wasn't a kid, and this one we could have caught if they would have signed something. So they eventually signed the complaint, but now they're gone. And the cameras, a lot of these cameras don't hold stuff for more than a couple of days. So, yeah. So that's.
Have you gotten any feedback on that new meat place on the Grange?
Wild Fork? Yeah, I have not. I have not, and I haven't been in there. But it looks a lot nicer than IHOP did. So it's nice to have that addition. Yeah.
The building was built and stocked with business before Pete's was.
Yeah, you know what? I like the people at Pete's. I'm not going to say. I wish they'd opened sooner, but they're very picky about things being done their way, done right, and that's how they are, and that's why the store is so good. So. I will say, based on what everyone's told me about shopping at Pete's, it'll be worth the wait. So, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it opening. I'm looking forward to seeing all that traffic in there and all the sales. So, what other questions do we have? Nothing else out there? those crowds are they're not asking questions as long as they used to. And I even ran on some with all the stuff. So, I mean, I think in summary, I mean, Orland Park's a wonderful place. And there's a lot of people, it seems like for the 8 years I've been here, and I know Trustee Katsina for the 6 years she's been on the board, it seems like there's some people that just want to attack and denigrate Orland Park for everything we do. And we didn't do that when we were residents. We didn't even do that when we were running for office. The previous board, they did some dumb stuff. We've talked about some of that. They did some good stuff, right? I mean, that's what happens. But we're trying to set us up for the next 20 or 30 years, and I think the way you do that is not by focusing, like we talked about, not by focusing on what Orland Park isn't. Let's focus on what we are. We have a great community. You have, like I said, 15,000 acres of forest preserve either in or touching Orland Park. You got 65 parks. You got a park for every 900 residents, and that's like 4 times better than average in the country. You know, you look at our parks, the Schuschler Park, Centennial Park West, John Humphrey Complex, Centennial Park, all those great parks, plus all the little pocket parks you have are fantastic. We've done an amazing job fixing our roads. The boards back in the 70s really planned the community well from a standpoint of all of our retail, most of it is down LaGrange Road and on 159th. So if we live here, we don't have to fight that traffic all the time. Think about these other towns like Naperville, where that stuff is everywhere and every road you go on is jammed. It is not like that here. You can get to and from your house, to and from your parks, without dealing with heavy traffic, right? You know, so there's been a lot of good planning on that regard too. We have retail, basically everything you could want retail-wise practically in Orland Park. You have the #1 auto row in the state on 159th. We have so much. We have medical. I mean, you name me a community that has the amount of medical that we have with all this, the Silver Cross and University of Chicago and all that has come in here, and that's without even having a hospital. So we have a fantastic police department. Obviously, we face more potential for theft than any community in the southwest suburbs. And what we were named, out of 360 communities that they studied, we were #2 with the lowest property crime rate out of 360 suburban communities throughout the country. And we were #5 for lowest violent crime rate. As Chief McCarthy said, you could walk down the street with 2 $100 bills hanging out of your pocket and you'd be able to walk anywhere you want in the park, right? So, I mean, we have a very safe community, you know, and pretty much everything. Another resident told me he didn't realize he'd lived here for 20-some years. He was a consultant, so leaving Sunday night, come back on Friday. He goes, I never realized, and then he had kids, so he's running the kids' events. He says it wasn't until COVID that he realized everything he needed to do in his life and wanted to do in his life, he could do in Orland Park if he wanted to do. He could go bike, he could go canoeing if he wanted at Lake Sedgwick. I mean, biking, you name it, you could do all that stuff here. You can play pickleball, you can play tennis, you can, you know, golf, well, all those things we have here in Orland Park. So we're focused on making sure that Orland Park focuses on what we have, not what we don't, and trying to make ourselves into something that we're not. Let's just embrace what we have and enjoy that. And hey, if you want to go down to Frankfurt and be in their little square, it's a cute little area. We just don't have anything like that here. Let's not try and force it on our. We have plenty of great things. Enjoy it. You know, and be thankful for all that we have, because a lot of the communities around us don't have that. They would kill for what we have. So that, and we're focused on trying to make sure that, what do we need to make sure? We need to make sure that we create an environment that businesses want to be here. I saw the Palos Park mayor today, and she says, I have 3 businesses basically in town that I have to fill. And she goes, and I'm always on the phone trying to fill them. I don't have to get on the phone to try and fill little businesses. They're already here. They already want to be here. Everyone knows, every restaurant in the country that's looking to expand knows where Orland Park is. They hear it all the time. They're going to go to Naperville, they're going to go to Schaumburg, they're going to go to Orland Park. That's where they're going to go. I mean, we didn't open Lululemon because Lululemon doesn't know everything about Orland Park. I promise you they do, right? So I'm fortunate in that regard. I can focus on the bigger picture stuff, like how do we fill the Carson's hole that just opened up? And we get Von Mauer, right? Those are the things that I get to focus on, where some mayors are focused on trying to fill the little sandwich shop, right? It's because we have such a great community. And, you know, and we want to make sure our roads stay great, our parks stay great, our buildings stay great. We continue to do great events, like Centennial Park West is going to bring great events, bring people to Orland Park, because those people that come here and go, wow, this community, how many times have we heard, Cindy, that I've never really been down here? They've lived in Chicagoland all their life, and they've never been down here. They didn't realize how many forest preserves we have as they drive through them. They didn't realize just all the nice things that we have here, right? And we've had people who said they moved here because they came down and they realized what a nice community was. And so they decided when they were relocating, that'd be a great community to move to. So we had someone from, at a Centennial Park West concert, it was actually not, it was a Taste of Orland. They came for Sister Hazel. They came from Texas to see Sister Hazel. And then they said this was so fantastic, and they didn't stay, they were only here for like a day and a half. And they said it was so awesome, next year they're coming back and they're going to stay longer so they can enjoy the town. Right, and it didn't matter if it was Sister Hazel. So, well, yeah, but they were excited. I mean, they were really super excited. She sent me a thank you card and all that. So that's the kind of stuff. It's a great, so, you know, focus on that. I mean, I grew up here. You know, my wife reluctantly moved to the cold from North Carolina because that's where my job offer was out of the military. And we moved back here because and she could tell you, we were looking at other areas. We were looking at Naperville, Buffalo Grove, some other areas that were hot. And at the end of the day, I said, I know that Orland Park's a great community. I know it has great schools. I know where it's located relative to the city. I said, why go fight the traffic everywhere else when we can have such easy access? We have much easier access to the city than any of those other places. We do. So, you know, I think that's what we have to focus on. And I think if we do that, if we do that as a board for the next, you know, for the rest of my tenure, and then hopefully the people that follow me, we're setting Orland Park up for the next 40 or 50 years, which is what our goal is to do. So. Sure, there's no other questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. Oh. Yep. Yeah. What's that? She said it's the people of Orland Park that make Orland Park the great place that it is. It's why our businesses are successful. It's why the town's successful, and that's absolutely true. So thank you very much, you all, for coming. I appreciate it.